Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about Fallout as a work of art. And just before I get started, I'm talking about the whole series. I'm talking about all the games and the TV show. I'm talking about it as an IP. I've already done a video about games as art. I'll link it below. You can kind of see this video as a continuation of that video because I'm taking some of my ideas from that video and I'm kind of talking about it in more detail. Also, I want to clarify that making a game, actual game development, not the end product, but the development, that itself is both an art and a science. And I mean, this is something that is behind all the videos I do, and I'm constantly talking about this, so I'm not going to rehash it. But I will say this: people who try to treat the development process like it was art are shocked when money factors in. Are like, well, oh my goodness, we're not done with this feature. What do you mean we're out of time? You've managed it wrong. My entire perfect diamond creation is destroyed because I don't have companions that can jump. Whatever it is. And then, but the flip side is true. People who treat game development as if it's a science, who think you can predict everything that happens, and we've done it for decades, so it's now a perfect science. They don't understand game development, and those are probably the ones that minimize the importance of R&D. They're like, just go make a game. You've done it before. Just go make it. Okay, and then they're surprised again when it runs late. So that's interesting. That's how games can run late because of the artists on the team. Not I mean people who are artists. I mean the people who treat the process as art and the people who treat it as science. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion, and that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about let's just look at games, and in particular, let's look at Fallout as a work of art. And I want to kind of take you on a discussion to see where that leads us. So during the pandemic, people turned to games and TV and movies and books as a means of escape. You couldn't go out and do things. So finding escape and finding entertainment and even just distraction in those things was great. So games had a huge upsurge during the pandemic. And what I want to make clear at the beginning is I don't view art as something that provides answers. I look at art as something that asks questions and you answer. So looking at Fallout through that lens, you can say, well, what questions does Fallout ask you? Fallout says, how would you act when removed from all the constraints of society? Would you help people? Would you kill people? Would you just walk around as a complete opportunist? Do you follow clues along in the story, or do you explore? Do you just want to see what the world's like, and you will stumble across the story if you happen to? Or do you follow the story slavishly and you're like, all this other stuff is distraction. Those side quests are distraction. That person whose cat's up in the tree, that's a distraction. I must follow the story. And then finally, when faced with choices, which I love to do in my games, what choice do you pick when you absolutely are forced to choose? Not when you're just acting on your own, but when you're forced to choose. Do you go selfish or selfless? That's why I kind of view Fallout as art. Is it ask those questions? It makes you do it. And that's what I loved about the end slides, because it's like, hey, all those choices you made, those questions I asked you in the context of the game, and you answered, here are the consequences. So that's why I always viewed Fallout as a little bit more than just entertainment. Yes, it's a game. Yes, the primary purpose of it was to entertain you for a few hours. Like I've said, my job is to make computers go beep boop. But there's a little more to it than that. And even more so, because Fallout is so broad and asks such open-ended questions and expects an answer from you, that means Fallout is different for different people. You can describe what Fallout is to you, and it can be completely meaningful and true, but it may not be that to someone else. Fallout was designed to play differently for different PC builds. I mean, it's inherent. It's built into the game. When we did the original Fallout, we placed all of the wackiest things that I would call wacky stuff. Those were put in special random encounters, especially when we brought in nods and homages to other IPs like Godzilla or Doctor Who. We placed those in special random encounters to both make them distinct from the rest of the game, and also, if you played a low luck character, you're not even going to see them. So, boom. Fallout New Vegas took that one step farther, and I like what they did with the Wild Wasteland perk. So you explicitly said, do I want to see things like that in my game? It wasn't wrong not to take that perk. It wasn't expected. The game isn't pressuring you into doing it. It's your choice. It's like, what kind of experience do you want to have? Click. So, based on those very explicit things, Fallout, of course, was different to different people. Because depending on what build you made, different Fallout playthroughs that you did may have been different for you. One may have been extremely meaningful and deep and really made you look at yourself. The other one you may have just been a murder hobo and went, woo, look at me, I'm shooting people. Both of them are valid playthroughs. Now, let's think about people coming to the IP now. And there's all these different games, and they have all these different teams that have brought them to you, that have stressed different parts of the IP, that have made wildly different games, visually, tonally, design. You can see then how some people might like some of the games and not others. You can see how they might have liked the TV show or not. And what I'm trying to stress here is, this isn't necessarily a statement about the game, the games, or the show. It's a statement about you. You brought this interpretation to the IP. You answered the questions a certain way, and all the game did is kind of reflect that back at you. The different games reflected it back at you different ways. The show reflects it back at you a different way. And that's fine. It's kind of what I'm trying to say here is, once you accept that Fallout is art, that any game is a piece of art to some extent, you have to understand that it's going to be interpreted differently by different people. It's going to be interpreted differently by the same person playing different player builds. And that's fine. It doesn't mean your interpretation is the correct one and theirs is wrong. It doesn't mean yours is wrong either. Since it's about you and the game interacting, of course it's going to be different to different people. I would like to think this would be obvious, but the fact that I'm making this video, I think for many people, this isn't how they think about games. Especially people like my generation and older didn't view them as art. They viewed them as kiddie things and a fad. I'm so glad I didn't go with that, and I had my career. But things started to change, in the 90s, and now it's very clear, at least to me, that games are art, and people are approaching them differently and expressing how meaningful they are to them. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that and say that is my view of not just games, but Fallout itself, the entire IP, every game and the TV show, as a piece of art. You come to it, you interpret it, and that's true for you. So I hope you like this video, and I hope when you go back and play the games or watch the show, that you look at it a little differently, at least in the light of half of what I'm seeing here is a reflection of me interpreting what I'm seeing here.